What's up, G-Speeders and crawler friends? I'm Gabe Fleming, owner-operator of G-Speed Chassis. Today I'm going to show you how I cut out this truck cab to fit on a GS FS chassis set up for a G-Shop. So here we go. First thing I do is cut away the excess fenders and bottom of the doors to get most of the lexan that I'm not using out of the way to make it easier to cut the final cuts. Next, I give myself a couple relief cuts, one at the bottom of the grill and one at the back of the cab. Just make it easier to remove the excess lexan. Just bend and snap at your score mark and yep, those pieces just break right away. Next, I'll make a few guide marks on the body that I came up with when I first started doing this. The first one's a small mark in the center of the trim that divides the hood and the fender. This is a mark I'll be measuring from in a second. Same thing on the other side. Make that little mark right in the center of the trim. And I'm also making another little mark right at the center of the back of the door handle on both sides. And then from the back of the door handle, I just by eye make a straight line back towards where the back of the cab rounds. And it's just a pretty much horizontal line from the back of the handle to the back of the cab, and it's just where I'd line up a jig piece that I made. You'll see in a little while. Next thing is measuring down from the mark I put in the center of the trim, right down the seam in front of the door and back of the fender. You make a mark down at 24 millimeters. Same thing on the other side, starting from the mark at the center of the trim, measure down towards the bottom of the door and make a mark at 24 millimeters. And next, I'm going to go from that mark at 24 millimeters and draw a line at an angle up towards the hood. And it's basically a line that just divides the two of the faux air vents on the side of the body. You just touch each one of them. Same thing on the other side. Go right from that mark at 24 millimeters. Draw an angled line up to where it intersects the front of one of those faux air vents and the back of the other one. And you stop right at the bottom of the trim of the hood. I'm going to go from the point at the back of the door handle to that mark I made at 24 millimeters and draw a line. And this creates the angled part of the bottom of the door that matches up perfectly to the G-Shot FS carbon fiber sliders. I'm going to make a mark right at the bottom of that trim. That's right at the bottom of the hood, side of the hood. And you can just run the pin right along the crease of the bottom of that trim, and you can make a perfectly straight line because it basically follows the molding of the body. And then another straight line right at the bottom of the hood at the top of the grill. You can just set the pen right in the crease there and run it down, and it creates a straight line. You don't need a ruler. Basically following the natural contour of the body. And I use a jig I made up from a scrap body to easily draw in the angled part of the back of the body that needs to be cut to follow the angled sliders. The bottom of my jig, I have at the bottom of the body is 2 inches from the bottom of the back window down to my cut. So I made a mark, and then I'm just by eye put my ruler and follow one of the lines on the body and get a horizontal line there and mark it out. That's where the bottom of my jig will line up to. I'll just go from that small horizontal line I have in the back of the door handle and just trace my jig down to my horizontal line I've created on the back of the body already. Finish off the ends and by hand. I'll take my box cutter and carefully score all the way around the body. Actually, I'm giving myself a couple relief cuts at the bottom of the doors, which you don't really have to. It just kind of makes it easier to snap off at the end. I just start on one spot on my line and score slowly and carefully all the way around. Key is to not press too hard, because if you press too hard and you're pulling back and the blade kind of loads up, if it lets go, then you're going to screw up your body and go too far. So I just go slow and always keep my knuckles and fingers against the body, and I just pull the blade, like a 1/4 inch at a time. I guess you could say towards the center of my hand, and I don't lift my knuckles and fingers off the body. I just always kind of leave them against the body as a guide, so the blade doesn't slip and run into the part of the body we want to save. Just go slow, real careful. Don't press too hard, and make sure you have a sharp knife. I always start off with a fresh blade. And I'm not cutting all the way through the lexan. I'm just creating a scored mark that I can use to snap the lexan off at the end. And just bend and snap right at the score mark all the way around. Give myself another little relief cut at the bottom of the grill and the back of the cab. Just make it easier to take the pieces off and let them bend in and snap. Next, I'll set the body on the chassis rails and on the sliders. And now you don't want your shocks mounted while you're doing this because they get in the way, because we're actually going to center the body on the sliders and then hold it pinned down there, making sure the front of the hood is center with the front bumper. Make sure everything's setting center, and then I'm going to mark either side of the shock hoops. Right at the kind of close to the bottom of the windshield, and then also out in front of the shock hoops. And these are just guide marks that I'll be able to use the ruler and draw straight lines. So basically your marks are going to be, just a tad wider than 3 millimeters, which is the thickness of the chassis rails. And once I do that, then I get the ruler and draw straight lines between those marks that I just made, basically creating marks, and so I can cut out a slot for the shock hoops to penetrate the hood. And once I make those marks, I measure down from the seam at the part of the hood that's close to the windshield towards the front of the hood, down 38 millimeters on each of those slots, and that's how long those slots are from the seam at the hood closest to the windshield to the front of the shock hoops. Just make sure I'm eyeing it to make sure the lines are parallel. Making a couple little guidelines right at that seam of the hood and the piece of metal right by the windshield. And I'm going to score those two little marks. Score the end of the slot. It's closer to the front of the hood. And just go through those little spots just one time. One pass. So there's one little score mark there. That one we're going to snap. Now the long part of the lines, either side of the slot, I run the blade down and I score it 2 times. So I make 2 passes on each line. I do this first. Going slow, like I said, always keeping my hand against the body so my hand doesn't slip, and just pull the blade towards the center of your hand with your fingers. So I'm taking a couple passes just to make a deeper score line. And this is to allow the blade that I'm actually going to dive down through the hood to kind of follow that deeper score line. So I just make sure the blade is straight, and go down about a quarter of the way down your line, your scored line, and make sure the blade is really straight to the line that you have. I look down the center of the blade, and then go ahead and just kind of push down through the body and push that straight blade, and your double score line kind of creates a guide also, and then you can cut majority of that line out on either side. Like I said, I start about a quarter of the way down that slot, and then I end my deep cut about a quarter of the way from the end of the slot. And then I actually cut that excess piece of lexan right in the middle, so I have 2 pieces that I can bend out the bottom of the body and snap off. I'm just pushing real hard and diving that straight blade right down the hood, through the hood. Then once either side of that, your scored lines are cut, then you can cut that excess piece of lexan right in the middle, kind of at an angle, and it allows you to fold them in towards the bottom of the inside of the body and snap them off. And the body just sets right on the G-Shot FS perfectly. Just that easy. Hope this helps out. Like and subscribe, please.